Okay, so boys and girls, we added a couple comparisons, similarities, and differences in our Venn diagram. And just to review real quickly, in chapter 5, what is something that occurred that is different from My Brother Sam is Dead? Something that did not occur in that book. Go ahead.
Like in My Brother Sam is Dead, Sam went to go fight, but Charlie went to the war, but he didn't go to fight, and he went to play the drums.
Okay, so Charlie is the younger brother, and he went off to war, but he's learning. Is he learning how to shoot a gun? No. So that's one thing. He's just learning how to do what? Play the drums. And what did we find out? What happens to people who fight within their own regiment, to the soldiers?
Stand on the barrel for hours.
Yeah, they have almost like torturous consequences. Okay, so Sanders Field, chapter 6. Each day for almost 2 months, Charlie and his drum went out with a wagon to different spots in the Virginia countryside, but not always with Silas Gorman. Sometimes drummer boys from other divisions served as his teacher. And going to other parts of the war-torn state, Charlie saw the damage from past fighting in the form of deserted shell-marked houses, burned-out tobacco barns, and unplowed fields long gone to weeds. God bless you. When he was with them, Silas told Charlie what skirmishes had taken place there, if he knew. Charlie liked the other boys he met well enough and worked hard to learn what he could from them, but he made no real friends among them the way he had with Silas and Jim. His newly made drummer's uniform was indeed splendid, and he always wore his drumsticks at his belt. He found he had a natural rhythm, and his swift progress pleased Silas and Captain Mahoney. Keeping the sticks by him constantly, Charlie beat on anything available in camp: walls, wooden floors, fences, wagon sides, and even once a sergeant's broad back. Can you picture that? Turn around and act that out. One of you's a sergeant, one of you's Charlie. Good. Yeah, he's actually going to his back, drumming it out, you know? It kind of shows there's a decent rapport between the men that he could go up and do that. And all this time, he still scarcely knew Tom Fallon, the bugler. There was very little forthcoming from the boy. Charlie wondered if Tom's silence was due to the fact that he stuttered. It was hard for him to get words out. Silas said that Tom talked with his trumpet, not his mouth. In the weeks Charlie spent learning his job in the Army, he saw Jim Miller 2 more times, each time between tattoo and taps. Jim, a corporal now, was as pleasant as always, and ever glad to see him. One time only the boy saw Con Sullivan, and that time was ugly. Driving out in a wagon to practice with the 3rd Division drummer boy, Charlie spotted Con, standing under an oak with soldiers holding muskets with fixed bayonets surrounding him. Con himself was weaponless. The drummer boy stopped the wagon and told Charlie, "That soldier's going to get punished." "Is he?" "You bet. I bet he cussed out an officer, or he stole something. Let's watch it." Seated next to the other lad, Charlie looked on as Sullivan's arms were jerked up by 2 burly soldiers, and ropes were fastened around his hands and fingers. The ropes were thrown over the low limb of a tree, and Con was pulled up until he stood on his tiptoes only, with his weight on his thumbs. The other drummer said matter-of-factly, "Strung up by the thumbs, they'll leave him like that for a while, till he learns his lesson."
When his thumbs are going to come off, though,
That's why he had to stay on his tippy toes. But can you imagine the excruciating pain after just a couple of minutes? "I knew him," Charlie told the boy. "He was with my brother, and when he got killed at Gettysburg." "Well, don't try to cut him down, or you'll get thrashed." "I won't. I didn't say I liked him, did I?" "No. Let's get going." As the two drummer boys passed in their wagon, Sullivan spotted Charlie. At the top of his lungs, he yelled, "I see ya, Charlie Quinn! Look your fill, you dirty little gutter snipe!" After the other drummer boy had clucked to the startled horse to go on, he said, "It appears to me he don't like you either." Charlie answered, "For a fact he don't. He likes whiskey better than anything else." "He ain't alone here in favoring whiskey," came from the other boy. And that was true. In the short time he'd been with the army, Charlie had noticed how much gambling went on, how much whiskey made its way into the camp. On the morning of April 17th, Gorman went out again with Charlie, and after putting him through his paces, drumming, he said, "You're doing fine. Keep at it. Practice all of the time. Beat on anything that'll stand still for you. Sleep with your drum beside you at the nights, and don't ever go any place without it. I'd say by the 1st of May, you'll probably be ready to do my old job, even if you ain't ready to play in the brass band at dress parade. Men will understand what you're beating out. You're a real Jim Dandy. You sure took to this natural like. It took me 6 months, which you know now. And you already know everything you'll need. I'm proud of you, Charlie Quinn." And Charlie blushed with pleasure and joy. That same night, Silas came running to the cabin with important news he'd heard at the hotel. General Meade had sent special orders to Washington, D.C., asking for large supplies of wagons, medicines, and food. To boot, he'd requested 50 rounds of ammunition for every soldier. He wanted every man in his command to have 6 days' rations of food and another 10-day supply to be carried on wagons. There was also to be 10-day supply of grain for cavalry and wagon mules and horses. In 3 days' time, Meade wanted to have 4,000 wagons ready to drive off at an hour's notice. "Sure as can be," said Gorman. "We're gonna be moving out of Culpeper." "Where to?" asked Charlie. "To where we can find General Lee and his rebs." "Can I go tell a friend of mine?" Charlie looked to Captain Mahoney now, who was in the room with him. "Sure, I bet he knows already. Nothing on earth moves faster than news in an army camp." As the captain had predicted, Jim Miller already knew the news. He was darning one of his socks by lantern light and greeted Charlie with, "I can tell from your face that you heard what happened." Now, what does darning a sock mean? What do you think he's
Drying it maybe?
drying it? If he knows he's getting ready to march and he has a sock that he's working with, what would he be doing?
Making it comfortable?
Actually mending it. He's fixing it so it doesn't have a hole, because you know how uncomfortable that is marching all day with like a hole in your sock. So he's fixing his sock. "I sure have. When'll we be leaving?" Not right this minute. Sit down." Charlie sat on the home-fashioned stool facing Jim, who sat on its exact counterpart. "Well, when will we go?" he repeated. "When the generals decide. When we're told to cook enough meat for several days, eat and clean out our muskets, we'll be sure to have 40 rounds of cartridges in our cartridge boxes, and the other 10 in our pockets or knapsacks. And that's when we'll be moving out. We'll have a dress parade too, and a message or a speech from the general. How do you feel about going off to fight, Charlie?" "I wish I was a real soldier, not just a drummer boy." "Well, you'll be learning about the war anyhow. Don't expect to like it. You know what the soldiers say war is like." "No, what?" "It's 4 parts waiting, 4 parts blundering about, and 3 parts marching and fighting. Let me tell you a few things you ought to know." "Sure. You tell us, Jim," came from a soldier lounging on a blanket a few feet away from Charlie. "You don't need to know, Jess. You were at Gettysburg," Jim retorted, then went on to Charlie. "What do you think retorted means?" Maybe said it harshly. Yeah, good. "Well, Charlie, some men see fighting one way and some see it another. I'm a religious man. I think that every battle I come through is God's purpose for me. If he wants me to come through it, I will. Other men will teach you. Other men will tell you each one of us has got a set time to die, and that could be in a battle. Now, that ain't what I think, Jim, volunteered Jess, a thick-bodied man with heavy dark brows. I think every fight I come through makes it all more likely I'll get killed or wounded in the next one. And this made Jim say, I was about to get to that. That's what most soldiers think. Charlie asked, then, if I'm going to fight in my first fight, I ought to be all right, huh? Do Confederates fire at drummer boys? What's the answer?
Yep.
Oh, yes. Jess grinned. Bullets ain't particular about who they hit, kid. All the Johnny Rebs ain't sharpshooters. One of them could aim at the color bear of the 140th and hit somebody else. But ain't you supposed to pick out one enemy and aim at him? Asked Charlie. That's what officers tell us. But when the fighting gets hot, you forget things. You just flop down on your back, tear off cartridges with your teeth, and reload your musket. Roll over and shoot some more, even if it's only at smoke rolling towards you, and hope you live through it. Jess, there's no call to scare the boy here. As Jim put down the mended sock, he told Charlie, more soldiers in this man's army die from sickness than battles. Bear that in mind. Thank God there ain't no malaria in Culpeper. But what do you think will happen next, Jim? We'll just sit here on our hunkers and wait and see.